Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Impact Farming episode. Today, I am excited to have David Derwin back joining us. It's been way too long, David. How are you?
I'm doing very good. It's been quite a while, Tracy. So it's good to connect again.
Yeah, it's so nice to see you. This is the new seeing people these days.
That's right. Yeah.
So David is a commodity portfolio manager, and we're going to be talking about grain marketing in our current environment. I am super excited for this conversation, David. Very timely. And I know there's a lot of grain farmers in the audience with questions. So before we dive in, why don't you tell our audience a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Certainly. Well, when it comes to the grain marketing environment, I've been working with farmers now for over 25 years. And throughout that time frame, it's always been about how to best manage revenues, capture opportunities, manage risks, and really just balance out the overall marketing process and having more tools in the toolbox that really allow you to fine-tune the marketing approach, take advantage of opportunities that you might not be able to otherwise. And especially in this environment, what we're seeing now with very high prices, a lot of production uncertainty, a lot of volatility, I think it's more timely than ever. And on a go-forward basis, it's something that I'm just finding more and more growers are using as part of their regular operation to have a few more marketing tools in the toolbox. And that's what I'm trying to help with and managing this uncertainty going forward.
Amen. You know what? It seems like it's getting a little more uncertain with each year and everything is getting more expensive, right?
Oh, and every day too. Like, look at you go to bed last night and you're wondering, will Russia invade? Will they? Won't they? You wake up middle of the night and it looks like they have, and then you get up in the morning and they absolutely have. So it's a lot can change even on a day-to-day basis as well.
Amen to that. Okay, why don't we set the stage for this conversation with a little bit of a recap from 2021? Okay, I know how farmers have done is different right across the map, but kind of let's just set the stage with 2021, what happened, how farmers are feeling, and then we'll dive into 2022.
Right. Okay. And, 2021 was obviously a very challenging year. We started off with good prices. Prices kept moving higher, and there was a lot of interest and a lot of desire to capture some of those high prices. And people were starting to price, as they typically might, 10, 25%, 30%. Marketing year goes on, prices move higher, and people are a little bit more keen on pricing in, maybe up to 30, 40% of their crop. And then once summer started to hit and the drought started to hit, all of a sudden, those 25 and 30% production commitments fairly quickly turned into 75, 80, 90 or more of their expected production. And as a result, we did see a lot of that marketing flexibility being taken away and buyouts that occurred. And it was really a textbook year on where you want to have some adaptability and some flexibility in the marketing process. And we know growers can be extremely good on the production side, on being adaptable, changing gears on the fly, so to speak. And that's probably what really hit home to a lot of people last year, is that having some more flexibility on the marketing side was really a lesson that was learned and understood a little bit better. Even if it just in the sense that they knew, there's more that has to be done. I know that there's more that can be done. So let's find out how to do that and not get kind of painted into a corner like we saw last year.
Perfect. I think this topic is hot on the minds of many farmers. So, okay, that's a great recap of last year. Now, why don't we pivot to this year as people are looking at new crop year pricing
Right.
and what happened last year and concerns about potential drought for this coming year already? Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, and obviously the high prices are something that attracts everybody's attention. But what's often on the mind of the producers is also those high input costs, because that's where a lot of the risk lies. Is that a lot of that investment and expense has already been made. So when you're looking at these high prices here, of course you want to have the ability to capture them, but at the same time, hearing stories of in some cases horror stories, but in some cases just the typical buyout situation that happened to some, not everybody, but happened to some. It's made a lot of people leery, even if they're in a scenario where they got very good moisture and they're not too concerned about it. It still makes you think twice about things. What could happen? What if this happens? And that dryness situation is still very much here with us. I mean, here I'm in Winnipeg, and I look out the office window and there's plenty of snow on the ground. But then again, you talk to someone in southern Alberta, and they can see the brown grass, and there's not even snow in the ditches. So on average, the moisture levels are perfect. But as often the case, it's never perfect in one area, right? You either have too much or too little. So, and that's not just here on the prairies. It's also in some of the winter wheat growing areas down in the U.S., Kansas, Nebraska, Texas. So that's an issue there. And then even looking around the world, there's scenarios that are popping up, and you hear about very dry conditions in northern Africa, which Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia are some of the largest wheat importing regions, and there's also a fair bit of drought there. So we hear drought all over the place. And it causes you to be a little bit concerned and really start thinking about those big what if scenarios, right? It's like, what if I don't have much of a crop? What if prices do go up? I don't want to commit anything. So it puts everybody in a little bit more of a cautious mode about how they're going to approach the marketing this year.
Absolutely. And, I forget what the saying is, but once burned, you're a little bit gun shy the next time, right? So whether the drought hit your farm or you're just on egg Twitter and hearing everybody in their stories, you're a little bit gun shy, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So then, on that note, then we have some farmers that are probably less than confident on the best path forward. So I want to ask you, you work with farmers all the time. If you were sitting down consulting with the farmers in the audience, what marketing strategies would you recommend right now?
And that is a very steady part of the process on a regular basis, talking about marketing. And and I think taking a step back, it's not necessarily about specific strategies, although it does lead into that. But I think so you take a step back, and a lot of it is just having that level of becoming comfortable and confident with, what I use as a very flexible marketing tool. And I like to call them the Swiss Army knife of grain marketing, are options. Calls and puts and different option strategies provide a tremendous amount of flexibility to the process. So I think the first step is discussing with people, and I've certainly received a lot of interest in that over the past couple of months, about people calling and saying, hey, I need to learn about this more. I want to get a little bit more comfortable with this first. How do you go about that? And that's something that I think is key in the process. So it's that first step of looking at what's out there and realizing that, these types of tools are used a lot in other industries, be it oil and gas or mining, or in lumber. Like these hedging tools are available and they're out there. So it's not that they're necessarily anything new. It's the new part is just for the individual, being aware of it, learning a little bit about it, getting comfortable with it. And then you can start to figure in how they're going to work in your marketing plan over the course of the crop year. But especially now, as we're in the early stages here, prices are excellent, but we're a long ways out, let alone from taking any grain off the field, not even putting it in the ground yet. So naturally, there is going to be some hesitancy in terms of how do we best capture these prices. And I don't want to be pricing too much in the elevator just because of last year's scenario. And even in a typical year, a lot of growers may not want to commit much more than a quarter of their production, maybe a third, maybe a half, depends over the course of the year that will develop. But the specific strategies really allow you to separate some of your pricing decisions and your delivery decisions, where you can capture the price by using options, but without having to, at the same time, commit your grain to delivery and be subject to any production risk. So it's pure price insurance is really what it is. And it's not connected with production. So separating delivery and pricing decisions is the bigger picture first step towards using these tools on a regular basis.
Okay. Question for you, a little bit left field here. You mentioned that options, these tools are used a lot in other industries.
Right.
And I talk to a lot of people in agriculture, and as producers, we tend to lean towards our traditional ways of selling still, right? Versus using options. Is that correct?
I would say so, definitely, because that's often been the way, that's been the approach. And, over the years, a couple of things have changed. One, I think there's just been a little bit more awareness and education that these kind of options and these tools are out there. And part of it, too, is that over the years, we've had a lot more investment and expansion in the storage area. So it used to be that the elevator was, it helped you manage your price risk, and then they could also help you manage storage. But now with some of those things changing, especially on the storage side, it's only natural that some of the marketing tools also change as well. And a lot of it just happens to be the education and the knowledge of it. But you're right. I mean, companies use these tools all the time. And a lot of farms out there are very large, very sophisticated, and would rival many other just production companies that I've seen that I work with. And when you look at the amount of cash flows that are moving through their business too, there's a lot of risk there, and there's no reason why they can't use these tools to manage that, and especially in an environment like this, capture some of these high prices without being too concerned about locking in and not being able to produce that grain.
Okay, David, I'm going to ask you a very vulnerable question here. Okay. Somebody in the audience. We probably have people on all spectrums in the audience, right? People going, right. Okay, David, Tracy, I know all about this. I do this. I don't need to finish watching. You guys are great, but I'm just going to go. And then we have people going, we have people in the middle going, yeah, okay, I understand. I'm not super comfortable. And then we have people going, what are they talking about? And going, I know this is the right thing to do for my business. I get it. But I'm going a little deep here into the business owner, the farmer psychology for you. Okay. Because I know sometimes what trips me up as a person, and it's human nature. We don't want to admit that we don't know. So, and we'll loop around to this at the end on how you work with farmers, but I want to be a little bit vulnerable because I think this is what trips up a lot of people. They go, okay, gosh, I want to call David. I want to ask him about this. Right. But oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I don't even understand the words he's saying. I don't get it. I'll read a little bit, but I have felt that as a business owner, a farmer at times, and it stopped me. So right. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I think sometimes our biggest barrier as business owners is ourselves, right?
Yeah,
sorry, going a little deep here.
No, but that's a good question. And I've actually been quite surprised that throughout the last several years, but especially this past year, there have been a lot of people that have reached out and said, look, I need to learn more about this. I don't get it. I don't understand it. This is way over my head. But, and the response is, well, you're obviously very good at the business that you run. You're smart at figuring things out. So let's take a little bit of time to learn about it. And there's a lot of resources available. I mean, I have a lot of resources. There's very good ones that are available online. But after that point, you get that little bit of comfort level and you realize, this is not that big of a deal. Sure, it takes some time and effort to understand it, but that's only natural. I want people to be comfortable and confident in what they're doing as they use these strategies. But that ability to learn and be able to use it on a portion of your production. I mean, these strategies don't, just like you can decide to, sell off a couple hundred tons of your canola, for example, the same strategies could apply where you might want to hedge or protect maybe a quarter of your expected production. It's not an all or nothing decision. So it's very easy to start the process. And as we all tend to do, is we learn by getting our hands in there, by getting our hands dirty and working with things. And I've actually been quite surprised that a lot of people will just come out and say, I don't get any of this. So I really am going to lean on you to understand. And knowing that the part of the full service that I provide is exactly that, is learning the understanding, helping them structure hedging positions, monitoring it and following it up. It makes them realize that it's not all just thrown onto their shoulders and that they got to deal with it. No, it's working together and building that relationship throughout. And the more you're in touch and the more you talk with people on it throughout the course of the year and month after month, they get a little more familiar with it. I keep them up to date on a very regular basis on what's happening. So it just becomes a natural part of their business, just like they might not understand all the intricacies of the legal structures of their maybe the trust that's been set up or the business incorporations or the accounting at the end of the day. They know enough to use it and benefit from it. And I think that's the same thing here is know enough to understand it, comfortably enough to get involved and use it on a regular basis.
Okay. Thanks for going down that rabbit trail with me, because I know sometimes on things like this that are not traditional to our farm business, it can be easy to get overwhelmed and then those walls go up. So I wanted to speak to that. I like to throw myself under the bus.
Well, that's a good question. It's an important one. And there are a whole range of clients, even some that have been using it for years. And even myself, I mean, every day the markets change. So you're always learning something new. But what I think it is that it's people will say, I'm getting this, I'm understanding a little bit more. And sometimes even after a year, people say, I get it a little bit more, not that much, but I know what it's doing. I like the results and I can see how it benefits and helps me have a little bit more flexibility and adaptability in my marketing process. And it all connects also with storage decisions, delivery, cash flow. So it is one piece of the overall marketing puzzle, along with your basis contracts, your deferred delivery contracts. So they're all part of the same bigger picture puzzle, and they all have an important role.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for speaking to that. Now I'll pull us back on track here.
Okay.
So farmers, many in the audience after last year have been burned, and they vow that they'll never price anything ever again before it's in the bin. Do you want to speak to that? Because I think that might apply to a few people.
Yeah. And I mean, being involved in the markets for over 30 years, I never say never, right? I mean, so one can never say never on things. I think there was an initial a bit of a shock to see what happened, especially if it hit closer to home to you. And it also depends on people's just their land and what kind of moisture levels they have. And there are some people that are in a drought, not just for the past year or two, but 3 and 4 and maybe close to 5. So those are the type of people in their situation where they are going to be very hesitant to do that, and understandably so. And then you're going to have other people who have got great moisture levels and they're fine with it, and they're fairly diverse in terms of their land base, so they're comfortable pricing a decent amount this early in the game, and everything in between. So I think it really depends. But what I have seen across the board is whether you're in a situation where you really don't want to price anything, which is fair, or you're comfortable with your normal approach. I just find that these tools can really help fine tune and make the process, regardless of what end of the spectrum you're on, just a little bit easier going forward.
Okay. Lots of good stuff. Before I get you to share some final words of wisdom, I almost want to pick your brain a little bit more, David. Sometimes I get intrigued here when I'm talking to people, and I try and put myself in the audience's shoes. So let's say I'm sitting in the audience and I go, okay, I know I got to look into this. I got to learn. So I'm going to call David up. How does that go? Do you start talking to them, getting to know their farm? Like, let's kind of get the audience a little bit more comfortable with that process. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that again is a large part of the process, especially up front. And I find the more you can get to know the business and the operation, the better it is going forward. So a lot of the initial discussions are, you know, what do you grow? What's your storage capacity like? What do you typically do on the marketing side? What are your cash flow needs? Do you like to sell a lot off the combine? Do you have the ability to store it all? Do you have some grains that you like to get rid of earlier rather than later? And that really depends, but getting to know just the flows of their business, what they do, is a big starting point. And with any relationship, the more you get to know someone, the better you understand what their specific, interests, risks, needs are, then the better it's going to be. So that's a big part of it, is just getting to know the individual so that I can provide them with what they're looking for. And then after that, there's a lot of resources that people can look at. There's some excellent resources online. I mean, I have a lot of ones as well that I'll share with people. And sometimes the very first step is, here's a couple of, short guides or handbooks and very good ones online too, like the CME group, the ones that run all the commodity futures exchange, like the Chicago Board of Trade, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. They have some really good short 2, 3, 4-minute videos about how options work, how futures work. And I often use that as, for someone who's very new to it, as a starting point, because they look at it and then they realize, oh, okay, this is not really that difficult. It just takes some time, like anything, right? It takes a bit of time to get used to it. So that's a starting point. Okay. And keeping them up to date on things, getting them a little bit more aware of the markets. And they get busy, right? You got seeding, then you got spraying, and then you got maybe some time off in the summer, and then you got harvest, and then you got there's all these something that has to be done on the farm. But if I can make that process easier to at least get them resources, that goes a long way towards getting them to where it's important, the important step, learning about this and using them.
Okay. And one last final follow-up question to that. What is the best time for these farmers to be having conversations with individuals like you?
Well, the best time often coordinates and coincides with when they have time. And I found that over the past few winter months here, November, December, January, February, there's been a lot of people reaching out to me to learn about, and that's just naturally because they have perhaps a little bit more downtime. But it's the best time. It's kind of like the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, right? The next best time to plant a tree is today. So these are tools that can be used in a farm business for years down the road. So certainly now that we've got some very, very high prices, this is going to be an extremely important year to kind of get up to speed a little quicker than you might. Yeah. But whether prices are up or down or volatile or moving sideways, I find that there's always room to improve the marketing process, to capture some shorter term opportunities, to avoid some bigger pitfalls. So it's a process that the sooner you start, the more you're going to get out of it. But I think this is a big year for it, just because we've got high prices, we've got a lot of production uncertainty, a lot of market volatility. That's where options shine and really do earn their keep as part of the overall marketing plan.
Okay, excellent. I'm glad I asked that. So I'm going to work to wrap the interview up with a final bit of words of wisdom. Before we go there, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, mention to farmers? I'll give you one last spot. We'll do words of wisdom and then a call to action, how people can connect with you.
Yeah. And I would say that it's not an all or nothing decision, right? And these are tools that don't change the way you're currently going to still deliver your grain to the elevators, or it doesn't replace that. I don't take delivery of any of your physical grain. This is really pure price protection and price enhancement strategies that basically are an overlay on top of what you already do. So it's not something where you should think of it as an either or. It's an as well as kind of situation that complements what you do on the pricing side, your storage decision, your cash flow. So it really does complement that, and it shouldn't be viewed as, well, if I start looking at using options, then am I going to be giving up what I do currently? No, it's not that at all. It really is something where you use these tools in addition to all the other tools in your toolbox.
Fantastic. Those are great words of wisdom. I don't know if you have anything to top that, but those were amazing, David.
Well, it comes from just lots and lots of conversations with clients and really trying to help them through the process.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, I love how we went into how to work with an advisor a little bit. So if somebody is in the audience and they want to connect with you, how can they do so?
Well, the best way, I like a good old-fashioned phone call. There's nothing better than talking on the phone with someone, but I know people can be busy, and sometimes just to make that first initial step, there is, I got a very open door policy. Call, text, email. One can check out my website as well as a way to at least start the process and start that connection. So, I can provide some of those details as well, if that'll help people listening, and happy to answer questions and have some discussions that way.
Yeah, you know what? Why don't you do that? Can you share your details here on the video? We'll also include them in the show notes if you're watching and you don't have time to jot it down. Just go to Farm Marketer, Impact Farming, and then find the episode and it'll be in the show notes. But if you want to share, David, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Best way, I have my cell phone with me almost 24/7. So that's always a good way to reach me. And I'm here in Winnipeg, although I deal with farmers all across the prairies and even into Ontario. But the number is 204-918-2734. And that's also the text. And one could reach me too at email. It's dderwin, so DDERWIN at pifinancial.com. And if they also want another way to not only receive some contact information, but learn a little bit more and get a bit more background, is going to my website at commodity-options.ca.
And you send out news blasts here and there, and there's some great information in there too. I'd encourage people in the audience to sign up as a good way to learn as well.
Yeah, happy to share that with people too. And that's often the beginning of the process, is getting a little bit more comfortable and familiar with what's going on in the markets and some of the analysis that's done and some overviews and things to think about. I think that's key. It's just, always being curious and thinking about things.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, David. It was so nice to finally connect again. I appreciate your time.
All right. Well, I appreciate it very much, Tracy.
Perfect. And you in the audience, thank you for tuning in again. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, like it, share it, and get it out there. And if you're curious to know more, don't hesitate to contact David. Everybody in the audience, you guys know my thing here with the Impact Farming Show is building a strong team. We can't know it all. We can't do it all. And people like David are the perfect people to have on our team of professionals and say, hey, I need this. Can you help me? So don't hesitate. It's a call. And you know what? We're all about strengthening our farm business operations. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.